There are those that just want to be left alone, and those that just won't leave them alone. Which one are you? The Ernest Hancock Show.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt the song, know what I mean? Yeah, here on Declare Your Independence, we're doing our best to try and get an idea of how the nuclear power industry came about and where we're going with this thing. And I want to know what risks we have here. We have, how many nuclear power plants do we have, Karl? We have Karl Grossman. He's a professor of journalism at the State University in New York. And I'm interested in someone that would all of a sudden pick up the mantle of finding out, because you had a personal interest. You had near you, they were going to put up a bunch of plants in a consolidated area, and you go, let's go find out what's what. And they, sling you the PR, and you start finding out more, and 3 Mile Island happens. You do more research, and you go, the market forces are not here in play to protect us, which, they always say, no, we need more government regulation. No, the regulators always get taken over by the industry. I give you a perfect example. Goldman sucks, okay? You want to think that, they're going to help, they just get in those positions. Nuclear industry is the same way. So the only way you're going to be protected is from liability. You mess something up, you got to make it whole. Well, you have a nuclear accident, man, you're going to mess up a bunch of stuff. You're out of business. So it's probably not going to be the way to do something. And now we have, just the last few days, Russia is announcing they want to do a joint project with the United States and have a nuclear-powered spaceship. All right, whatever. I think they're starting to feel the threat from the private commercial development of space. They're going, we got to come up with some big government thing that they can't do. Well, they don't want to. They'll come up with some other technology. And that's my point. If you get government out of the way, we get what we want, but without all the subsidies and the funneling of money to certain people. So I want to make sure that we understand what our risk is now. How many plants do we have here, and how old are they?
A couple of points I'd like to make. One, in terms of the limited liability, it isn't $560 million anymore. It's $10.5 billion. Sounds like a lot of money, but look what's happening in Fukushima. They're going to end up with tens upon tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars in damage. A big chunk of Japan rendered uninhabitable for millennia. In terms of what you just mentioned about nuclear-powered rockets, and you earlier mentioned NASA, well, I'm the journalist who broke the story after the Challenger accident back in '86 that the next mission of the ill-fated Challenger was to carry up a plutonium-fueled space probe, okay? A plutonium-fueled space probe. And then I looked into what the consequences would have been if you would have had an accident like you had in January of '86 with 25 pounds of plutonium aboard, scattering all over, Florida and so forth and so on. Meanwhile, I have a book, another book that I've done called The Wrong Stuff, and like the right stuff, but the wrong stuff, and it gets into, it's just a cousin of nuclear power plants. These schemes through the years for nuclear-powered airplanes and mainly nuclear-powered rockets, and I get into accidents that have occurred nobody knows about. Like in 1964, there was a satellite called the SNAP 9A. It had plutonium on it. It failed to achieve orbit, came down, disintegrated in the atmosphere. Plutonium was spread all over the planet. In fact, a radiological report done a few years later said that traces of plutonium from that satellite were found on all continents and at all latitudes. Then NASA, incidentally, this big government bureaucracy, then figured, hey, maybe we shouldn't use plutonium for satellites. And they actually were pioneers in developing photovoltaic solar as a result. Meanwhile, they kept insisting that you need nuclear for space probes. Once you get out beyond the orbit of Mars, you need nuclear. You can't do solar and stuff. Well, let me tell you, in 2 months, NASA is going to launch its Juno mission, totally solar-powered. It's going to go to Jupiter, which I think is beyond the orbit of Mars. So it could have been done all along in space with solar, not with nuclear. From my research, it could have been done all along on Earth, on our planet, with solar and wind and geothermal, and not nuclear. And let me, if I could, just tell one story about, you were asking about the dangers. When Admiral Rickover resigns from the Navy, this is 1982, he makes a speech before a committee of Congress, and suddenly Rickover understands what he's been involved with. And he says 2 billion years ago there couldn't be any life on Earth. There was so much naturally occurring radioactivity. But as those radioactive poisons went through their half-lives, life could begin. And then this is Rickover, not Greenpeace. Then he says what we're doing by having these nuclear reactors is recreating these very poisons that precluded life from existing. And there, says Rickover, I think the human race is going to wreck itself. And then he declares to Congress, after all these years being the father of the nuclear navy, the father of the first nuclear plant shipping port in the U.S., we outlaw nuclear reactors. The issue with nuclear power, it isn't a matter of the Soviet design at Chernobyl or the GE design, which is boiling water, or the Westinghouse design, which is pressurized water, or the new pebble bed reactor, or any of these new improved nukes. The fact is they all produce these, like what Rickover is talking about, these terrible poisons that destroy life, some of them which last for millions of years. And that's why it's like years ago what the Clinton campaign, they said it's the economy stupid. With nuclear, it's the radioactivity.
Okay, now I got to bring up the other side. There are a lot of side effects of burning coal, a lot of side effects of other hydrocarbons. There's a lot of side effects of a lot of things, Certainly, even electric cars, we got all this. You start dissecting what goes into building and destroying old Priuses or something. You start having all other kinds of side effects. You just look at, the whole energy industry, they never really take into account beginning to end, the mining aspect of it, the disposal, the waste that's produced. So I'm looking at, nuclear, when they get done, they're storing the used fuel on site. And that was part of the problem with Fukushima. They had, this stored used fuel that was there, and they have to keep that cool. Then when they couldn't, and they had a lot of problems. So now here in Arizona, we have the Palo Verde nuclear power plant, which is one of, if not the largest one in the world. It's a, big plant. So one of my very best friends is a supervisor of the Corps. He used to be the guy that went in there and changing core. Now he's moved up and head of the team that does the fuel exchanges. But he says a lot of the time that they spend when they're not doing that is they're moving, casting, dry casting in pools, doing whatever, dealing with the waste. And I'm going, well, where do you send it? Well, they're supposed to have this Yucca Mountain thing. They're never going to open that. They keep messing around, whatever. So all these nuclear power plants store their stuff there. And I'm going, all right. Well, is that a threat? Is there a problem? Is it, well, I wouldn't use it as a pillow, but it's fairly stable there. So I'm asking you, in spite of what accidents we have had, the spread of radiation, how does that compare to the waste of other generations of electricity?
I think coal is terrible. The miners who are killed, the mountains that are torn apart, the global warming, and there is global warming in my judgment from things like coal. Coal is not the alternative.
That's another discussion. We'll let that slide.
No, coal is not the alternative. They would like us to believe, the establishment, so to speak, the energy establishment, big nuclear, big coal, big oil, they would have us believe the choice is nuclear or oil or coal or gas. But see, what they want to do is have energy systems. You got to stay on their tit, so to speak. You got to keep buying their gas. You got to keep buying their oil. You got to keep buying their nuclear. Like the photovoltaics, Ernest, on my roof, the sun doesn't send a bill. There's a wind turbine down the road from me. The wind doesn't send a bill. That's what the nuclear establishment doesn't want. They don't want us to have energy that would liberate us.
I completely understand. We have good friends that are coming over this evening. They live in Sun City West, a retired couple. to be having dinner with us tonight. He told me just last month there was some subsidy or something that made it advantageous for him to have solar power put on his home in Sun City West. He said his monthly bill averages about $30. And I'm like, wow, there's an incentive right there. But like you say, they do not want us to have this type of autonomy.
Exactly.
That is their main goal. Karl, thanks for coming on. As this develops, we'll ask you to come on again. Would you please?
It would be a pleasure.
Karl, Karl Grossman.blogspot.com. We'll have the archive up here in just a little bit. We'll talk to you tomorrow. We're talking about gardenpool.org, an entire aqua system. Uncovering the secrets and exposing the lies. That's what readers of freedomsphoenix.com get every day. Readers of freedomsphoenix.com are constantly provided the information that detail the real news between the lines of propaganda about government policies and the true relationship we all have with coercive governments. Learn the true condition of our economy, innovations and technological breakthroughs in energy, health, computer science, and space travel. Learn the truth well before it's admitted to in the lamestream media, the media that is so last century. Corporate media has evolved into nothing more than distributors of government propaganda, but we now have a fantastic alternative. FreedomsPhoenix.com provides constant news updates on the issues that affect our lives in the most important ways. Our liberty and our property are under constant attack, and FreedomsPhoenix.com provides the understanding behind the propaganda while encouraging the participation of our readers. Join us at FreedomsPhoenix.com. That's freedoms with an S, Phoenix.com. FreedomsPhoenix.com, where the revolution between the ears has already matured.